Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Getting Hammered. I'm your host, Mary Catherine Ham. I am here, as always, with my co-host, Vic Mattis of the Washington Free Beacon. We get a lot of news today. Many things about Memorial Day, some updates on the Gaza Pier, Scotty Scheffler, some news from baseball, which I found amusing, and tons of 2024 notes. But before we get to that, how's it going, Vic, coming off this holiday weekend?
Yes, hello, Mary Catherine. Doing fine, listeners may notice. I might be a few notes lower than I usually am, not an octave lower, but getting over a sore throat, cold thing. I'm feeling fine, so don't get nervous here in the studio. But it does give the listeners, at least, a little bit more of oral pleasure, if you will. I mean, AUR. AL, if you can hear, this is like a radio voice.
It's so early to be inappropriate.
Yeah, it's true, but what I mean is that when it's a rare moment. You know how this is when you're sick. It actually gives you like you'll sound when you've been under the weather. You've sounded like Kathleen Turner.
Yes,
you know,
you get a little
yeah. So I sound sort of more
pizzazz for your voice.
Right, no, more and more of a professional radio voice right now. So I hope you all enjoy this smoky voice. I had a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. We went up to visit my father.
Nice.
And also I saw my buddy Todd Palladino, who had his birthday and saw friends and family up there. That was a great time. One of the other friends, an old buddy of mine who I haven't seen in a long time, but they're very close. We went to high school together. He's a cop. And he had a lot of interesting things to say about what he has to deal with these days. And it really it came down to, so I'm not using any names, 2 words. Bail reform.
Yeah.
It's an issue.
Yeah, it is an issue.
And but I was really pleased because he's like, so, Victor. And of course, I enjoy that everyone calls me Victor up there. And he says, Victor, what are you doing these days? And so I explained my job. And I said, about these kids and the whole thing. And he says he has the same issue with his patrolman, which is better English in your reports, the memos, that you got to write your reports. And he said, back in the day, he had to make sure his reports were perfect. And now he had to actually have conversations with them about the use of, like, do you know the difference between there and there?
They probably do not.
And that's the
thing. And that's not a knock on cops.
No,
that's just a knock on young people.
Our educational system right now. No, and it's the same thing. I mean, I have these discussions as well with younger people. Yeah. And you start to wonder what it is like, how much they care about English and grammar and style. And the crazy thing is, he says it mattered more to him because when he was their age, he's a sergeant now, right? But when he was their age, you'd get called to court a lot. Yeah. And the other side would they would please read from your memo, and you would have to read word for word, and then you'd sound like an idiot if you didn't say something right. And so that, he was like, this really matters. The difference is, they're not getting called to court a lot anymore.
Oh yeah.
People.
Also, I do feel like in the new era, the superpower you really need to have is no shame, and it serves you quite well. So even if they had to go to court, they might just be like, "Oh yeah, I'll read this."
Okay, and I do have one public service announcement.
Okay.
We went to the IHOP, and I ordered the biscuits and gravy combo.
Okay.
This was a mistake.
Why?
It looks so good in the picture.
Uh-oh.
The biscuit comes out.
Come on. Okay.
It's warm-ish, but it's thick and dry. The biscuit's just thick and dry.
Okay.
There's no, it's not crumbly at all. It's more like mealy, and they put the white gravy. It is not a sausage gravy. It was just like Elmer's glue with sugar
what is it if it's not...
and salt. It was just
I hesitate to say, what is a white gravy if it has no sausage in it, but
Just saying. Thank you, Mary Catherine. And I really think you thought I was getting off to an edgy start. So I will say, I was probably spoiled because we were in Charleston. And I'm like, oh, I love biscuits, gravy, Miller's all day. Such great breakfast food. I've got bring it on. That was a mistake. But it's my mistake because it's the International House of Pancakes, it's IHOP, not IHOB.
This is true.
So why didn't I should have just stuck with the pancakes. That's something that they know.
Yeah, that's probably
And I
true.
did it because of the pictures. And yet the menus, as you know, in restaurants, and sometimes they do this at McDonald's or other places where they have options for like the printed menu and one with pictures for those who are illiterate.
Right.
Right. I'm of the latter, apparently. That's who it appeals to.
How you'd make
Sadly.
your decisions.
Yes.
No, that's what they should. That's the marketer's job. They should be doing that work. They should be making you buy biscuits and gravy, right?
I got fooled into it.
Somebody's getting a raise over at IHOP Photography. Right
yeah,
now.
that's right. That's right. Because it fooled me. I will say, though, it was a lovely Memorial Day weekend, and it was great to see my dad. We had everybody at his house and a great grilling out, so he was quite pleased. How are you?
I'm good. We also had a great Memorial Day weekend. Uncharacteristically sort of unscheduled. We didn't really have a ton going on, which kept us sort of
That's
open
kind of nice, though.
to options. It was very nice. We weren't traveling. I took the big girls to Arlington Cemetery.
Good.
I did leave the babies at home, and that was a good decision because it was warm out there. And I do this every year, which is I go to do the honor project at Arlington Cemetery with the Manion Foundation one of the days during the week or weekend, almost every year. And because it's the first event of the sort of kickoff of summer,
Sure.
I put on a tank top and pants, thinking I'll be fine. Like, oh, it's okay. The temperature's not that high out there. You're in the sun. You're walking around outside for hours sometimes. And then I made my children go. We parked over by the Lincoln Memorial and we walked all the way across the bridge to get down to Arlington, across Memorial Bridge, which is quite a walk in full sun. It's fine. First of all, I told them, you lose a day of screen time for complaining. And so that really cut down on it. Second of all, I told them, think about what all the people here have been through. And all you have to do is walk across this bridge, which I will stipulate was probably a strategic error on my part. But here we are. And so we made it across there. And then we did the whole event. It was lovely. We got to see our friends at Section 60 who have friends and family there. We got to visit our friends there and lay some flowers for some other folks who had sent in requests to the Honor Project through the Travis Manion Foundation. So that was a good time. And then when we left and I got home and talked to my husband, he was like, there's a parking garage right next to Arlington. I was like, can anyone park in that? Vic says, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, anyone
no,
can
when
park
you're
in
driving there, they have parking there.
How many times have I been to Arlington Cemetery? And I just assumed because it's DC, because these things are not always accessible by something as sensible as a parking garage, I just assumed there were no options for us. And I have never even inquired.
It is on the other side of the river, as you know, Mary Catherine.
Yes, it technically is Virginia.
If you're going down, I guess it's maybe Route 1 or 395. When you pass George on the Arlington Cemetery on the right side, you'll see it. It's like a little garage. It's tastefully done too.
Let's not tell the children. And I said to Steve, like, of all the things you don't tell me, like he's always given me logistical tips. This one, nope. He was like, well, I don't know. It seemed like you had a plan for what you were doing.
I am glad that the kids are too young to when you force them on this long march that nobody made a reference to the Bataan Death March. No. Especially on Memorial Day weekend.
Yes, I would have told them. I would have told them that was inappropriate. Inappropriate. But we had a good time. The next day we went to a cookout at a friend's house. We managed to hit 2 cookouts this weekend, right in the sweet spot when the babies are awake.
Oh yeah, because you want to see the baby.
Post nap, we can take them out for a little while they're fresh. And so they got to go to 2 cookouts. They got to go to the pool. That was our first trip to the pool this summer with 4 children. So we're getting our feet under us. But everyone did well, had a great time at the cookouts. I think that the youngest is overstimulated by summer. Like it was just, it was a lot.
Yes.
He might not be an extrovert kid. It's possible that we were zapping his energy because we went to the pool, we went to a friend's house, we went to another friend's house, and we're getting him home in time for bedtime. But he's just been through a whole thing.
A social whirlwind.
Yes, and then we put him to bed, and as anybody who has had infants you might have forgotten by now, if you overdo it with infants, they will get overtired and then they will fight sleep even though they need to sleep. So he's been doing that for a couple of days in a row. And I don't know if it's just a phase or if we did that to him, but frankly, he's going to have to get used to summer and how it feels.
In this family, certainly.
Because we're going to be doing this.
This is how his family rolls.
Yep. And then lastly, I do have to say, in preparation for one of these outings to Guy Benson's house yesterday, I was running around upstairs trying to get ready, and the toddler ended up finding her way upstairs, which normally we have it gated off. She found her way upstairs, and she's walking around sort of tailing me. But I'm trying to put on makeup. I'm trying to change my outfit, and she ends up in a different room from me several times, not for a long period of time. My kids love brushing their teeth, and so she's like, she got a hold of my toothbrush, which is not traumatic. That's fine. It doesn't bother me. It might fall on the floor, whatever. I'm a mom of 4. It's fine. The worst thing did not happen, which I know some people are thinking, did she put it in the toilet? No, she did not. She did not. But I saw her with it, and I just threw it back on the counter, and I said, okay, let's go out. We get home. Everybody goes to bed. At night, I get ready for bed, and I pick up my toothbrush, put some toothpaste on it, and brush my teeth, and I find out that she used that 2 minutes of unsupervised time to put shaving cream on my toothbrush.
Wow.
And it...
like a prank.
Yeah, it was impressive. She was playing the long game. And it's actually
masterful.
It really is. And it's a very well calibrated prank, right? Because it's not so gross that I'm going to be mad. It's not hurtful to me, but it's like, she got me. She got me. She pulled down her dad's shaving cream. And I brushed my teeth and I was like, what is that? What does that taste? And then I knew because it tasted like the shaving cream smells.
So you have sort of a very clean, manly breath.
I do.
That's what you're saying. You know what? I would take that as a prank.
Right.
Like I would rather have the shaving cream in my mouth than the IHOP gravy.
Yeah.
If you put that on the toothbrush, that would have been horrendous.
Birch forest breath or something.
Yeah.
No, there was no biscuits and gravy available in the bathroom, which you might think would be on brand for me, but no, we don't have it in the bathroom. By the way, biscuits and gravy can be a good solution for dry biscuits if you have good gravy.
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of what it's for. It's like, oh, these are a day old. Let's slap some gravy on them. But in your case, you did not have good thing.
No, and I really was hoping for a buttery, fluffy biscuit. Even if you want to go really unhealthy, like I can imagine probably one of the most unhealthy biscuits might be the Popeyes
please.
Biscuit.
Don't give this Popeyes nonsense
dripping.
to me.
It's dripping. Oh, yeah, sorry, right.
Popeyes is like corn.
I wouldn't.
It's like hardtack.
I still haven't.
Popeyes
I've still never had Bojangles.
Oh my gosh,
we're gonna have to amend that.
I gotta bring you some.
Yeah, we'll do that.
They keep
but
closing
that's what
around
I want.
Here. I know.
But that's what I want. I was hoping for that kind of a biscuit.
Okay, let me correct this for you because Popeyes is terrible. Not the chain is not terrible.
Yes.
But the biscuits are not good.
If I think, I am from New Jersey, so this is like what people down south tell me about really good pizza. I'm like a little wary.
Right. No, I think, you would be right to say, well, I'm the expert on that. I happen to be more of an expert on biscuits, and I will get you.
Okay.
Because
all right.
Popeyes are, people say this to me sometimes. I'm like, what are you talking about? Because Popeyes are dry.
No.
Yes.
It's like buttery, fluffy, and I'll tell you what.
You ain't seen buttery and fluffy.
We'll do a comparison, and then I'll do it right in front of the microphone so they can hear that.
People love that.
That mealiness.
All right, I'm on a mission this summer. We will get you Bojangles. Okay. I'm glad we had that uplifting conversation before we went to the Memorial Day updates.
Oh, boy.
Joe Biden was at Arlington National Cemetery.
Yeah.
He said many nice things about how our people in service are so brave and those who gave all. He also inevitably talked about his own experiences and his son, Bo. Now, they must have heard enough over the years about how he keeps sort of conflating Bo's death with a combat death. So he does make clear that that's not what happened, but I'll just let you hear a little bit of this.
This week marks 9 years since I lost my son, Bo. Our losses are not the same. He didn't perish in the battlefield. He was a cancer victim.
He goes on to say that he was a cancer victim because he was next to these burn pits. And that in and of itself is, it's not as obvious an issue as the "my son was killed in combat" lie, which is a bad one because you don't tell
or he died in Iraq.
Right. You don't tell Gold Star families that you are a Gold Star family member unless you are one. But there is another issue, which is that Beau Biden, tragically, who served his country proudly and well, died 5 years after he came back of a brain tumor, glioblastoma. You may remember that's the same thing that afflicted Senator John McCain.
Mm-hmm.
There is no known cause for glioblastoma. They're researching this. There is no connection.
But he's made the connection to the burn pits.
He's making the connection, but science has not made this connection. Right. If you don't know for sure, you shouldn't be saying it out loud. And so what you've done is you've accidentally, this is intentional at this point, he's ended up with the story of his son's death, which he references constantly, which is, look, that is his pain and it is real, but it tends to overtake the pain of others who he should be addressing.
Right.
Now you've ticked off Gold Star families repeatedly because you're not a member of their society, but you sort of keep claiming it.
Right.
And then there's this other group of people who suffer from this rare cancer that they would desperately like to find a cause for, and that they would desperately like to have money behind research for. And yet, he keeps making this connection that's not there. And I just find that, well, A, it's inaccurate, and B, it's disrespectful.
Well, as you know, though, he is compelled to make a connection. Whenever he's with any group, whether it be the Irish, the Italians, Puerto Ricans, the black community, he's always trying to say, actually, when I was young, I was raised by, or I went to these schools, or I was
raised trans. It was we were ahead of our time, and Scranton.
Yeah, and I asked my dad, about those two men kissing, and he said, Joey, you got to protect the rights of the transgender community.
That's what he said.
We got to add the T to the LGBTQ. There must be a T, and that's how he knew it in the 1950s. But no, this is one of his things, and he has to control himself. And I do wonder, when he gives that particular speech, I mean, that must obviously be on the teleprompter where he says it's not the same thing, because he's very aware of it, but he still feels compelled to talk about it, to make some sort of connection. Hey, but this happens too, and you have to be. This is like when you have a social interaction with somebody who loses a loved one. Sometimes there is that tendency to want to relate to the person, and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, your husband, wife, or child, whoever died because of this. I just lost myself a few, and I get it, but you really need to focus on
unless the loss is very similar, it can be treacherous to get into
he starts to, hey, I'm one of you, that's his whole thing, and that's his whole sort of, for the 30, 40 years he's been in office, is I am one of you.
It is not good. The American Brain Tumors Association, by the way, just says the exact cause of glioblastoma is unknown. The majority of glioblastoma patients have no family history or identifiable risk factors. It happens to people across the age spectrum. Right? Like it's very odd who it strikes.
Right.
And so to put these two things together, I just think is inaccurate and wrong, and he shouldn't be doing it. And I know the press is not going to get mad at him about it, because it doesn't even get mad at him about saying
they just
died in combat. But
that's right. I mean, other people have to point it out. And glioblastoma, I mean, a friend's mother, she has it, and it's a terrible struggle. And I mean, and there are moments where, you could do very radical surgeries to have it removed, but it's rough,
very tough.
And then you're always on the lookout for the recurrence. So
he also did the wreath laying at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
Yes, and
it's not a clip you can really play because there's not a lot of sound. It's a solemn moment where he takes this large wreath and lays it at the tomb. But let me just say that the physical act of taking the wreath to the place where it is laid, he's not doing any of the work. Now, there's always I looked back at other wreath layings. There's always a uniformed officer there to help with this process, right? It's not just the president carrying it. I looked back at some Obama ones, but our boy is not even touching the wreath. I mean, it's like he's just sort of shuffling in front of it. And I thought, I don't know, it just continues to look like he's not really
he's
doing the job.
So he's that guy. Like when you're doing a heavy lift and you have the feeling, or if I'm with having one of my children when they were smaller help me, and why does this feel so heavy? Oh, basically because I'm carrying most of the weight and they're just sort of balancing it.
You're putting your hand upon it.
Yeah, and you can tell. You can tell that somebody is not pulling their weight, and that's so he's just sort of like letting it bounce on his hand. Is that it?
Yeah, basically. And shuffling. Now, I don't want anybody to get too upset because we're definitely going to go to Trump after this. But I do have to do a couple hits here on Biden. Biden also spoke at West Point to the graduates of that august military academy. It takes a ton of work to graduate from a United States military academy.
And an honor to be addressed by the commander-in-chief.
Well,
I'm sure.
You would think. So here he is talking to West Point graduates, and what does he tell them? Well, let's play it.
Hypothetically, I was appointed by the fellow I ran against when I was 29 years old to the Naval Academy. I was one of 10. I wanted to play football. And the day I was supposed to go down for the interview, a classmate of mine who was also one of the 10 appointed to be chosen from, named Steve Dunning, came to pick me up. And I had found out 2 days earlier they had a quarterback named Roger Staubach and a halfback named Joe Bellino. I said, oh, I'm not going there. I went to Delaware. Not a joke.
Annapolis was that close to having Joe Biden as the quarterback. I think he's kind of off with the dates, if I'm pretty...
It's just a lie. It's just a lie. Okay, two quick tips. When you encounter someone who has just lost a loved one or who is going through Memorial Day or an anniversary of the loss of a loved one, do not compare it to, say, like, your lesser loss or something bad that recently happened to you, right? Like, that's just a rule of thumb. Also, don't tell people who did the work and went to a United States military academy that you almost went to an academy. Like, that's not a...
almost is... But he basically said he was this close. That's it. He was... his buddy picked him up. They were driving. They were driving to Annapolis. He's ready to go. He was already... To
these folks who've been through 4 years and are about to serve another 7, I believe it is, it's not a feather in your cap. They're not impressed.
That was polite laughter, by the way. I also, when he gave the... I think it was last year when Biden spoke to at the commencement at Texas Tech. He said he was almost a quarterback, but there was this guy, Patrick Mahomes. And they said, oh, I'll forget about it. And then he left.
Oh, he did indeed play for his high school team, Biden. So at least he doesn't make up the actual...
I know he played.
He was a wide receiver, so I don't know why he wouldn't want to play with Staubach. But perhaps it's all mixed up in there. This is just nonsense. None of it's verified. If he indeed got an appointment, there would be a record of him getting an appointment, would there not?
No.
That goes from a congressional office to the United States Naval Academy.
We've been through this before, and you know, crazy old Joe. Spinning yarns. That's just how Joe is.
Don't do it. Don't do it on Memorial Day. You know what's another thing you shouldn't do on Memorial Day? Post this on Truth.
Oh, no.
All right, here we go. From the other side of the aisle, we have a contestant in the worst Memorial Day behavior. Former President Donald J. Trump. I will just read it to you. Happy Memorial Day to all, including the, capital letters, human scum that is working so hard to destroy our once great country, and to the radical left, Trump-hating federal judge in New York that presided over, get this, 2 separate trials that awarded a woman who I'd never met before, a quick handshake at a celebrity event 25 years ago doesn't count, $91 million for defamation. She didn't know when the so-called event took place, sometime in the 1990s, never filed a police report, didn't have to produce the dress that she threatened me with, it showed negative, ! And sung my praises in the first half of her CNN interview with Allison Cooper. But
does he mean Camerata?
No, I think he might mean Anderson Cooper.
I think that's intentional then, isn't it?
Who knows,
right.
Man?
I'm thinking Alice Cooper.
But changed her tune in the second half. Gee, I wonder why. Under appeal? The rape charge was dropped by a jury! On Arthur Engeron, the New York State wacko judge who fined me almost $500 million. under appeal, all caps, for doing nothing wrong, all caps, used a statute that has never been used before, gave me, all caps, no jury, Mar-a-Lago at $18 million, now for Mershon.
Mary Catherine.
And also to the soldiers and Marines and airmen who have died for this country. And nope, there's none of that.
He did. But he did. He said, Happy Memorial Day to all. That's it. That's all you have to, so he covered all his bases there, all living and dead, those who sacrificed their lives. That's assumed in the all. All means everybody, Mary Catherine. And then after that, just stay. He is really, on the one hand, I think it really shows the absolute, utter self-discipline this man has, right? And then it is a miracle that we got through 4 years. On the other hand, he's remarkably focused on one thing.
Indeed.
Which is the trial.
The several trials. I also don't, I don't need to be too much of a stickler about this, and it's not like I go around correcting people over a holiday weekend over it, but it is not Happy Memorial Day. That is a little bit of an awkward phrasing because obviously many people are mourning those that they lost. So just in tone and content, we're all wrong here.
Yeah.
We're all wrong. Biden's wrong. Trump's wrong. I'm so excited about these two choices. Let's go to Congress. Perhaps we have some better entries. Here we go. Congresswoman Cori Bush. This Memorial Day and every day, we honor our veterans in St. Louis. We must invest in universal health care, affordable housing, comprehensive mental health services, and educational and economic opportunities for our veterans as we work to build a world free of war and violence. Okay, here's the deal. Congresswoman Bush, those that we honor on Memorial Day cannot take advantage of the list of benefits you have given us.
No, but on Veterans Day, she says, we honor the sacrifice of those who gave up their lives. Those veterans who are now dead.
Shall we go to Ilhan Omar and see if she does any better? On Memorial Day, we honor the heroic men and women who served our country. We owe them more than our gratitude. They have more than earned access to quality mental health services, job opportunities, housing assistance, and the benefits they were promised.
Yes, the veterans were, yes.
Yeah, the veterans, just Google it.
That is...
How hard is this?
It's very hard. There's a lot going on. Do you know if they ended up blaming it on staffers?
I believe they did.
Because that's what I would have done.
They deleted both of those tweets. But again, if you're a staffer, I would also recommend Google for any major holiday just to figure out its origins.
Yeah. They probably also have issues with, English and things like that, as I mentioned earlier on the show. So
my goodness.
Like writing in general, this is a real challenge. Facts, writing. Other than that, everything's fine.
Veterans Day and Memorial Day are different, guys. They're different? Okay. All right. I did thank some live veterans as well at Arlington who I ran into, but the day is for those who are buried there. Okay. Quick update on the Donald Trump criminal trial, which is the first criminal trial of a former president and the thing on which he is focused right now, which, by the way, he probably should be focused. Just, take some time to write a quick truth about the soldiers. Okay. They are supposed to do closing arguments. So by the time you hear this, they may be done with that, and they may have even received the jury instructions from Judge Mershon. Pity the poor jury, because the defense closing argument is supposed to take 2.5 hours, and the prosecution, I believe, 4.5 hours, and then Mershon's jury instructions about an hour. But Mershon has enjoyed the spotlight when he's had it, so who knows if it might go beyond that. So that's quite a day in court.
Mary Catherine, I'll mention this later on the show as well, if I may just say. When I was on mock trial competitions.
Yes.
Two-time
This
county
is why
champ.
we have you here.
As a former
for
Free
legal
Beacon legal correspondent.
analysis.
I a two-time county champion. Closing statements, I believe, were 15 minutes. That was it. You had 15 minutes.
And that's how you became an editor.
That's right. It was very tight.
Get it tight.
Did you say 4 hours?
Yeah, okay. It's in this NBC piece.
Murder.
Defense was presenting its argument first, with Trump's lead attorney Todd Blanche expected to tell the jury that prosecutors from Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's office had not met their burden of proving Trump guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of falsifying business records related to a hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels in the closing days of the 2016 presidential election. NBC then writes, the charge is a felony punishable by up to 4 years in prison, and Trump is charged with 34 counts. It's actually not a felony. They created a felony out of what is a misdemeanor by saying it was in service of another crime. Mm-hmm. We don't know what that crime is yet. Perhaps we will find out in these 4.5 hours. In his opening statement, Blanche told the 12 jurors and 6 alternates that President Trump is innocent and he did not commit any crimes, and that Michael Cohen is trash. Just kidding. He didn't. I don't think he exactly said that. Prosecutors expected to argue that not only did they prove Trump was responsible for the falsified business records, but that he did so to cover up another crime, a necessary element of the felony charge. One would wonder why this NBC reporter is not curious what the other crime is. In his opening statement, prosecutor Matthew Colangelo, who is just freshly off the third highest position at the DOJ,
former number 3,
said the disguised payment to Cohen was part of a planned, coordinated, long-running conspiracy to influence the 2016 election. It was election fraud, pure and simple. Remind me, is he charged with election fraud?
No.
Okay.
Conspiracy? Oh, no, not that either.
None of those things. So anyway, we might have more on that by our next show.
34 counts. So they can find him guilty anywhere 1 and 34 times, because that's the 34 times it was mentioned as a legal expense.
Yes.
And each of those, one count could land you in jail.
I guess, yes.
So we're talking about he can go to jail for 100 years.
This thing's going down on appeal, right? Like, even
Convicted
if they get a
felon.
conviction.
I just saw somebody replying saying that this is nothing to sneeze at, because Republicans voters have said they're not 25-30% of these voters are not going to vote for Trump if he's a convicted felon, period. Mm-hmm. That's not the case.
Not sure I believe that at all.
This is not the classified documents case.
Right, exactly. There's also
if they know anything about it, and that's the key. If they're vaguely following it, then they might think, oh, I'm not going to vote for this convicted felon. He committed the crime of hush money.
This is, by the way, I want to bring this up from last week. It's from the New York Times. Our friend of the show, Kristen Soltis Anderson, is an expert focus group conductor and pollster. And she interviewed 12 women for the New York Times who voted for Trump in 2020, independent, Republican, and Democrat. Mm-hmm. And here's one of the questions. If President Trump were to be convicted in the current trial, would that make you less or more likely to vote for him in the fall? There are 12 of them. 11 say no difference. 1 says it would make her less likely, and 0 say more likely. So that is just a little snapshot of how much effect it's having on voters who probably aren't deeply engaged in
It's
this.
driving the left nuts. That they're going to put that this guy will be found guilty. He's a felon. He
may be, which I don't think would be the right decision.
He's found guilty of sexual abuse, right? And we could even possibly put him away, and yet he's still leading, according to the polls in this Politico story, by the way, that shows that that Biden Democratic strategists are very nervous now, and they've sort of resigned themselves to saying that this might not work out.
Yeah. It was a bad try. This was a bad try.
So just outside the courtroom today, Robert De Niro was there.
Was he?
And I listened to his speech.
Okay.
And it was very Robert De Niro. It was like sort of rambling, and his whole point was, we have to vote this guy out of office because not if he does this again, how can we let this happen again? And he's never going to leave. You understand that.
So
once he takes over, it is the end of democracy. It's the end of everything. He's a threat to this country, and that he will be there until he dies. If he gets voted, it'll be this is the last election. So when they say, by the way, that every election counts, well, I guess the last one would really count.
Right. I mean, it counts a lot.
Yeah.
So
and then he got, by the way, and then he got sort of heckled by some guy asking a question that interrupted him, and he was like, "Excuse me," And they're like, yeah,
You're talking to me?
Right. And it was like, I thought he was going to say that.
That would have been so good.
And he was like, oh, no, my friend, you're wrong. You're wrong, my friend. You know, it was like something out of Casino. It was like
such
amazing.
a circus.
Yeah.
It's such a circus. Also outside the courthouse today, apparently, inappropriately, the Biden campaign.
Yeah. Oh, he was part of it. That's why De Niro was there, because he announced that he is now part of the Biden-Harris team.
So he's hanging with them. Okay, because here's their guy outside the Biden, outside the courthouse saying, implausibly, we're not here today because of what's going on over there. We're here today because you're all here. As if they don't want the press covering Trump 24/7 at his trial. And the contrast here pretty much writes itself. Okay, so why are you there? And the idea, again, nobody can act like a damn grown-up. The idea that y'all think it is a good idea to highlight how excited you are about the first criminal case of a former president who also happens to be your opponent in a Democratic election, that's a bad look.
Being prosecuted by your former number 3 guy.
But they're happy about it, and they're just going to be very out there about it. I guess there is something to be said for both Trump and Biden just being very open about what their weaknesses and bad motivations and bad moral character are. I mean, it's all out there for everyone to see.
But again, if this is their plan, to defeat Trump, it's not working. As we know, the more Trump spends in courtrooms and less time yapping, right?
Right.
The better he does.
As illustrated by the Memorial Day truth.
And then the reverse. Oh, good. Now Joe Biden gets to go on the campaign trail, and talk to people. That's a problem.
Nope. You don't want him out there.
No, if only there was like a pandemic so he can hide in the basement again, then he would. They're
just going to have De Niro out there yelling at people.
Yeah, that's right.
That makes sense. Okay, so he was not just a celebrity friend.
No.
He's
part of the team
with the campaign.
Yeah.
All those spry Hollywood stars he has on his side. Okay. Another little complication for the Biden campaign. This is the New York Times last week. The Ohio General Assembly adjourned on Wednesday without addressing an issue that the state's top elections officials said would prevent President Biden from being placed on the ballot there, escalating a partisan clash that could result in the president not being on the ballot in all 50 states in November. Frank LaRose, the Republican Secretary of State, has said that he plans to exclude Mr. Biden from the ballot because he will be officially nominated after a deadline for certifying presidential nominees on the ballot. This is usually a minor procedural issue in states that have almost always offered a quick solution to ensure that major presidential candidates remain on the ballot. The Biden campaign is considering suing the state in order to ensure that he's on the ballot. Let me give you Frank LaRose's take. This is the Secretary of State. He tweets, "I didn't schedule the Democratic Party's convention. The Democratic Party did. I didn't write Ohio's current ballot access law. Democratic legislators did. Ironically, both can also fix this. I also appreciate that some might find the law minor or procedural, but I don't get to decide which ones to enforce. Ballot access rules on the front end of an election are just as important as ballot counting rules on the back end. When you start bending rules, you might as well not have them." Okay. I'm sort of in the process of deciding how I feel about this. There have been other incidents where other states have fixed this procedurally,
sure,
or let him give or candidates give like a provisional sort of certification that they're cool to be on the ballot. Generally, I think it better serves the people of Ohio that they have him there. However, when you drop a ball this big, you need to do real work to get it fixed. Ohio's not a swing state, so they're probably not losing a ton. Trump won this state by a ton. However, I resent the idea, and it always happens with Democrats, that they're like, well, yeah, we messed up like 3 times, but y'all have to fix this because democracy. It's like, well, if you're depending on other people to solve your problem in a state legislature over which you have no control, that's a problem.
Yeah.
You messed up.
Yeah, that's right. So on the one hand, it's true. This isn't Ohio 2000, right, or 2004, where this is a crucial swing state. Ohio's been deeply in the Republicans' side now for several election cycles. Right. On the other hand, it does affect the Democrats' down ballot.
Right.
So even if
there is this big Senate race. Yes, you're correct.
This is what they're worked up over.
Right.
I do wonder if this were another state, because this is not about charging, a presidential candidate with insurrection and then having him removed from a ballot.
Right,
This is all about, legal discrepancies here because of scheduling and the way the law has been written.
Well, and it should be noted that it is a tough part of any campaign to know these laws. It is your business
Election
to know
law.
these laws and to make sure that you are compliant with them in every single state.
Right. But,
it's not like this is a surprise.
No, but the mindset is, of course, well, you know what we meant. You can fix that thing.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you.
that's not how the law works.
No. If this were a different state and the issue were Trump not being on the ballot, do you think that there'd be just as much effort?
Well,
to get him. Would a Democratic governor be like, I got to get him on the ballot?
Well, yeah. Let me give you the New York Times headline on this story, by the way. Ohio elections official threatens to exclude Biden from the ballot. He is literally following the law of the state, which the Democratic campaign for president has been aware of throughout. Those rules, as he notes, were made by a Democratic legislator. Then they did have a chance in the legislature to fix it. Let me read you this from the story. A legislative fix which would have pushed back the certification deadline to accommodate the late date of the Democratic National Convention stalled out this month as Republicans in the Ohio Senate tacked on a partisan measure. Ooh, it must have been very controversial. A poison pill for sure. Let's find out what it was. That would ban foreign donations to state ballot initiatives.
Can't have that.
That seems like a small ask.
Deal breaker.
It seems like a small ask to get your guy on the ballot. Mr. LaRose has previously said that passing the ban is the price that Democrats must pay to ensure that Mr. Biden is on the ballot and that he would otherwise enforce the law as written. They gasp.
So Governor Mike DeWine is in a state, and he's fairly centrist, as you know.
Right.
And he has now demanded, and he's called the Ohio legislature back in through the night to get this thing fixed. And so our listeners in the morning, they might still be working. We don't know. Maybe they came up with a solution.
I mean, I just think you can argue that the legislature is being churlish, but you can't argue that they're being anti-democratic because you had a chance to recognize this problem and do something about it.
Yeah.
So at any rate, like I said, I think the voters are best served by having him on the ballot.
Sure.
But I think when you're dealing with the law, it is the law, and you have to find a way to fix these things.
On the other hand, look, if it turns out that he's not on the ballot and you're, the Democratic Party, fine. We knew it. The down ballot's going to have to fend for themselves, okay?
Right.
So that's unfortunate. But all this money that we were going to have to spend anyway in Ohio, even if it wasn't going to be that much because it's not a swing state, we just move all that stuff out and put it into the other states, I guess,
Or into the Senate race itself. Yeah. The point you make, which is like, if this was Trump trying to get on a ballot somewhere and his team had just dropped 3 different balls, I would not be sympathetic to them either. I'd be like, oh, yeah, that was really dumb, especially if you have Democrats in control of the legislature that you're trying to get something through. That's real dumb.
Right. And then you'd have some, legal expert, Norm Eisen, whoever, explaining it in the New York Times op-ed or on TV saying that, nope, he can't get on.
Yeah, and it would be a perversion. It would be a perversion of democracy. To allow him on this ballot should they figure out some sort of loophole. That's what they would tell us. Anyway, all right. Speaking of perversions, the Libertarian Party's convention.
Nice. No offense to our Libertarian friends.
We love our Libertarian friends, but the convention is like, famously sort of like, woo, loopy. And I'm okay with that. So let me tell you first that a guy named Chase Oliver won the nomination for the Libertarian Party, a 38-year-old gay man from Atlanta with socially tolerant and pro-immigration views, as reported by our friends at Reason, delivered a passionate response after Trump's speech. He spoke to the convention on Saturday. Now he will get to spend the next 6 months competing directly against Trump and President Joe Biden, 2 men more than twice his age. He promised to keep pressing a message that neither major party candidate is likely to offer. I will continue to bring a hopeful and positive message of liberty to both those who consider themselves libertarian and those who don't know they're libertarian yet. Trump gave a speech at this convention and was sort of recruited by the more pro-Trump Mises Caucus, named for
Ludwig von Mises.
Mises, the as all movements are for
Economists.
important economists.
Yeah, that's right.
Oliver's victory came over a candidate from the Mises Caucus, and he got himself into a little bit of trouble. He gave sort of a rambling, incoherent speech, as Reason reports it, and then this report, Michael Rechtenwald is his name. He confirmed to one reporter that he ate an edible pre-press conference, saying, "This was not some sort of major political scandal, okay? I wasn't found in bed with Stormy Daniels. I'm at a Libertarian Party convention. Somebody offered me something." It's the most Libertarian Convention end to the story that there could be.
I think there's no better quote that sort of sums it up than somebody offered me something. And at the Libertarian Convention, the answer is thank you, and you just take it.
Yeah. So the guy who won on like the 7th ballot. This other guy was in the race with him, but did this press conference and apparently gave a like I said, a sort of rambling speech. Gave this press conference where he dipped out on it. Was like, "I'm bored with these questions," and he left.
Are there any more questions from the gummies?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Sure.
Meanwhile, Trump, look, I didn't think this was a great fit for him to go speak to the Libertarian Convention.
What did he have to lose, I guess?
This is the thing. However, there's nobody from the Biden campaign making an argument there, right? And if many of these voters are double haters, which I'm sure they are, then you might as well try.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I believe he had, when he got booed about after suggesting to nominate me, he said, or you can just keep on getting 4% every 4 years. That's, the choice is yours.
Burn.
Yeah. But the gummy thing, it's worth remembering that the drugs today, kids, have THC levels that are far higher than they were in the 70s.
This is
and
not
the 80s.
The skunk weed of the early 90s.
No, it was that was like 2 to 4% THC, and this is like you can get upwards on certain edibles up to like 95%. So you can.
Is it a real thing?
That is, according to the NIH.
All right.
The NIH. So
trustworthy. Okay. Let's go to
at least the ones I take. Anyway.
A more serious subject, which is an update on this Gaza Pier fiasco.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so the U.S. built this pier, which is basically a photo op for Biden to his disgruntled voters who back Palestine and or Hamas in this conflict with Israel. And the idea was like, we'll get so much humanitarian aid into Gaza through, I don't know, Hamas and that area controlled by them. But there will be no U.S. troops on the ground, no boots on the ground, because they're going to build this pier. So they'll just be in the water and then on the pier and then in ships nearby. No problem at all. Well, a lot of people predicted that this would not go well, including us. Just thought there were a lot of dangers here. 3 U.S. soldiers have been injured now. This happened late last week. One with fairly serious injuries evacuated to Israel. 2 very minor injuries. They've gone back to work. He was listed in critical condition at one point. We certainly hope that soldier has a full recovery. So the risks are very real here. And then there was a report that the transfer of aid had to stop because there were rough seas over the weekend, and parts of that pier just became unmoored and ended up washing up on other parts of the shore.
I saw a video of this, and I thought, that can't be right.
Mm-hmm.
This must be a mistake. And oftentimes, especially in this particular conflict, people have been using old videos from Syria, for example.
Right.
So I
you
thought,
do have
maybe
to be careful about that.
You do. But it turns out that part of that pier did, in fact, float away with equipment on top, and I assume by now have sunk.
What are we doing? What are we doing?
It's costing at least $300 million.
I think it was $320 million.
$320 million. First of all, Trump could have probably got it down to $30 million after negotiating with the unions.
Yes.
I mean, he did build the Taj Mahal after all. And the second thing is, of course, he loved to throw this out at the State of the Union. Do you remember this was his big selling point, and then it got bombarded, but then they survived that, and then it's just falling apart on its own now. Again, but this is not something that I don't know. if this were happening under a different administration, I think we'd have a lot more attention paid to the ridiculousness and the late night talk shows. Everybody was like making fun of the video and the whole thing.
Of course.
I don't know if anyone's going to talk about the broken pier.
Probably not.
The closer
a
we
lot.
get to November and the stakes are getting higher and it's more real, people are coming to the realization that Biden could lose. You're going to see, everyone going into that mode. By the way,
yeah,
you're going to hunker down.
I mean, it's bad because you are putting people's lives at risk and like this can happen in any war setting.
Yeah,
you don't want to put people's lives at risk for an objective that is not clear.
Right.
For something that may not be accomplishable. Obviously, this has happened in other conflicts, but this is like such small bore stuff that gets you. It puts the people who are involved at very high risk for almost no reward except for press, right?
Yeah.
And then the bad press gets almost no coverage.
Yeah, it's a win-win.
It's disgraceful. It's just not a good idea. It seemed like doomed from the beginning.
Right. And in addition to this, by the way, Israel is proceeding apace.
Yes.
In Rafah, and they took down a few more Hamas commanders. But there were several civilians who also died in the process, and of course, the world is upset about that, and they have to apologize. They got to, there's a demand for investigation. I believe these are human shields,
right?
But
and
if you're Hamas, you're not getting blamed for the human shields.
What should have happened is that those civilians should have been evacuated. However, if Israel evacuates them, which they have many of them, that is also a foul. Like when the argument from the left is that when Israel evacuates. Civilians, that's displacement and awful and yet another international crime.
Move them, but don't move them.
But not moving them is also, it's a sticky situation.
Get another win-win. It is about 950,000 Palestinian civilians have been moved out into humanitarian zones, and yet the only people left right now are, you're going to have human shields, Hamas, and
against international law,
and any hostages that might be still alive.
Yeah.
I was just reading, by the way, this is interesting, Rick Atkinson's book, Day of Battle, about the invasion of Sicily, Italy. And the U.S. sent, this is in the fall of 1943, 130 B-17s to bomb Italian German headquarters, which is in Frascati outside of Rome,
right.
Killing dozens of German officers and 2,000 civilians.
Oh.
And all I can think of is, today, Eisenhower would have been, first of all, he would have been canned by FDR.
Probably.
And then they would have had a ceasefire.
Oh, yeesh.
Yeah. So
a couple sports stories for you guys today. I just found two things. Let's give you an update on Scotty Scheffler.
Oh.
Who is still facing charges such as assault on a police officer. Did you know that was one of the
for driving while he was attached to the car.
So the officer who tried to stop this car with Scotty Scheffler in it, his name is Gillis, Detective Gillis, and his report says that he was dragged by this car for dozens of yards and injured. And, it turns out he was booked for second-degree assault of a police officer, third-degree criminal mischief, reckless driving, and disregarding traffic signals. Now, Scheffler, the golfer, says, look, this was a very chaotic situation. There had been a fatality, sadly, before the entrance to this PGA Tour. He was trying to get where he was supposed to go. He was in a marked car, and they didn't understand what the cop told them to do. So they did the wrong thing, and he says he stopped fairly quickly. Well, there's video from a light pole that shows this encounter and Scotty Scheffler's SUV pulling into the place that it apparently wasn't supposed to pull into.
Right. It's a dedicated lane. Oh,
and
go ahead.
You can see over some tour buses is what it looks like. You can see over the top of some tour buses as this SUV pulls to the left, and a cop who is Gillis in a bright yellow outfit, reflective outfit, runs alongside the car, and you can tell he's mad, and he kind of hits the window, right? That's all you see. The car is already stopped by that point. Now, the Louisville PD says the dragging happened while the car's behind those buses, you see. But when you know it, Gillis's body cam wasn't on.
I was just about to ask. There's one way we can find out. The body cam.
So he has been punished for that.
For not having
not having his body cam on. we're sort of in an impasse here. But that video does not look like what the police report says.
And in addition, in my mind, when I think of Scotty Scheffler now, I picture him in the orange jumpsuit. And I'm thinking he's been there ever since. He's been there.
He actually got out that day and shot a 65, I think.
Okay, that's impressive.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Well, the truth will out, we like to think.
Yes. Well, and the question is, I kind of thought they might just drop charges pretty quickly, but now it seems like, he may have to go through this process. This video does not look good for the truthiness of this police report.
Right. And in addition to that, I'm pretty sure Scotty Scheffler could afford a good lawyer.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Anyway, so that's going on. Then I wanted to update you on a little MLB news. I am not a dedicated baseball fan. I watch the playoffs, but
neither am I.
The internet told me,
yes,
and I enjoyed some of the goofing, that there's a Major League Baseball umpire who's retiring.
Yeah.
Angel Hernandez is of Cuban-American descent. And he's out of here. That's a baseball joke, guys.
Very good.
This will give you an idea of the kind of umpire he was. Umpire Auditor, a Twitter and TikTok account that promises to highlight the worst calls of the day every day, will miss Angel Hernandez, acknowledged as the worst umpire in the history of Major League Baseball. This is NewJersey.com reporting. Hernandez has agreed to retire immediately. From the bottom of my heart, thank you, Angel Hernandez. The account posted when the retirement was leaked on Monday. You gave me more content than I could have possibly dreamed of. I didn't deserve you. Enjoy your retirement, King. Now, again, because I don't watch a lot of baseball, I did not realize how unanimous the feels were about Hernandez. Yes. But the baseball watching world is very excited about this.
So is this a forced retirement?
I think so. I think we're getting to the point where people are talking about, do we just need robots to do this for us? Should we do AI umps?
That's the thing, because they don't do let's go to the videotape here and then decide whether or not the umpire was wrong. And a lot of times, in this case with Angel Hernandez, games have been called wrong. But you look back on it.
There's a lot of evidence.
And then the only thing you resort to is the press conference, and then you can confront them about this, and they'll say, well, yeah, it looks like that, but anyway, we do our best. That's changed in certain other sports. For example, in tennis, in professional tennis now, they have, it used to be a machine called the Cyclops.
Right.
And it was a laser. I'd say fairly accurate. But now they have, of course, with all this high-tech other GPS stuff. I'm not a tech person. But then they show the instant replay where precisely the ball lands. Right. And the hardest thing to call, of course, is when it lands, half in, half out.
Right.
And how do you call that? So that could be a big change for baseball if they decide to do that.
Well, and I think he might have been one of the real drivers toward that change, and maybe MLB doesn't want to make that change yet, and so they're sort of sidelining this guy. Our friend Dan McLaughlin at NRO, who is a giant baseball fan, responds to the news that Angel Hernandez is calling it quits and says, if he called it quits, I guess it's not quits.
Very funny.
Which I enjoyed very much.
That's very funny.
And I do want to play one little clip. You can't see the pitches, but I just want you to listen to the commentators in the background here and how they react to his calls of strikes on these balls.
And, oh my goodness. Whoa. 2-2. You have got to be kidding me.
Here it comes. Cold strike three, and Schwarber is thrown out of the game, and he had zero issue with getting thrown out.
Got him, strike three.
The 2020 season over the COVID concerns.
But it gives you that edge.
Wow. I mean,
impressive. Those were reactions to mere strike calls. Like, you've got to be kidding me.
I think what happens is it's just sort of human nature. Your initial call, you're inclined to stick with it, because if you flip flop on it, then everything is open to question after that. So you're like, no, that's right, that was a that was
for sure,
and you cannot go back. I would say the other great umpire in this situation was Leslie Nielsen in The Naked Gun. Look it up.
Anyway, you should watch a compilation because, like I said, I'm no expert, and but there are some of those. The one that they screamed most on, the catcher has leaned outside the strike zone so far that he's on one leg at that point.
It makes you wonder, but I'm not going to say.
Hernandez, I should note, is also famous for having sued Major League Baseball for racial discrimination and has lost at several federal court levels.
Racial discrimination against Cubans?
In baseball.
In baseball?
Yes.
Dominicans,
what's next? The Dominicans?
Yeah, Dominicans. What's next? The Dominicans? Okay, I don't know what to say. Okay. Mary Catherine, I have a call out and a clarification here for us. The first is a call out. Playwright Phil McAleer, he has a new play out on Broadway.
Oh.
And it's called October 7, and which he told me online is, quote, a verbatim play using only the words of victims, survivors, and heroes we interviewed in Israel. It has a permanent police presence outside, the only play in New York that needs police. So if you're in the New York City area, go see it. It is at the Actors Temple Theater, and the last day is June 16. And then the second thing is a clarification.
Okay.
Thanks to listener Daniel for pointing out that I misspoke regarding a criminal trial's need to prove beyond reasonable doubt, and I said a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
Again, deeply mortified considering I am a former mock trial.
Mm-hmm. Champion.
Twice.
Champion.
Case closed. That wraps up this episode of Getting Hammered. Remember, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube, and you can follow me on Twitter at Victory Nomadis.
I'm at MK Hammer on Twitter, at MK Hammer Time on Instagram. You can follow the show at Getting Hammered Podcast on YouTube and Instagram. I have known Phil McAleer and his wife for a long time, and they do good work. So go check that out. It does not surprise me that they are on this very intense story and producing art around it. Speaking of art, I would like to give a recommendation to you and to everyone for The Fall Guy if you have not yet seen it. It is fantastic. It's super fun. It wasn't even like super inappropriate for children, if I remember correctly. I was thinking through it, and I think I might let my kids watch it.
In that case, I'll skip it. No, I'm just kidding.
It's a lot of fun. Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt, they're both super charming, but also the action is good. The plot makes sense. Yeah. Everybody's motivations make sense. Hannah Waddingham is in it from, what's the soccer coach show? Ted Lasso.
Yes.
She has a interesting turn in it. Anyway.
And it's based on the classic 1980s show, The Fall Guy, starring Lee Majors.
It is fantastic. Anyway, you will enjoy it. If there are any Angel Hernandez fans out there, please let me know. And I apologize for going after your guy. I don't have full context, but if you have more, please send it to me. But man, those compilations do not look good. And lastly, please, public servants, act like grown-ups. Please. Just on Memorial Day. I should have said it last week, and maybe they would have, but they didn't. These are our choices. All right. On that note, thank you for getting hammered responsibly. This has been a Nebulous Media Podcast.